Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central. So this isn't just a poop on Blizzard video, and the list isn't going to include your typical answers. What I mean by that is we won't be addressing stuff like ranked, hero balance, specific heroes, or toxicity at all in this video, because whilst I would agree that there are issues there that Blizzard could do with fixing, they are continuously working in that area. Toxicity's down with the social feature changes, hero balance patches are coming out more frequently than ever, and ranked is still in a bit of an iffy spot, but Blizzard are continuously making sure that they can work on that as much as they can. But this video is more about the problems that are plaguing the game that Blizzard aren't talking about or addressing at all, and it's becoming a bit more of a problem than people may have thought. Before we get started though, I do want to hear from you what problems you think the game has that Blizzard are just doing nothing to fix. Do let us know in the comments below, and you never know, they might even read this and sort of address this. You never really know at this point. But the first thing that I want to go over are events. We've just had the third installment of the Summer Games, and this event has been changed up very little since its first showing in 2016. This is the third version of the games, and the actual arcade brawl in it is exactly the same as it was before. There's a competitive mode, sure, and there's another new map, but who really sort of cares? It's the same sort of layout, it's just what goes on the outside of the actual arena. Very little has actually changed. Now, I'm not saying every event has to be like the Overwatch Archives, you know, the Uprising and Retribution lore events. You don't really need to have the big PvE experience. However, I guess people were expecting some little changes here or there, like adding in a small game mode like Maze Yeti Hunt for the Winter Wonderland is a great example of that. It's not a big game mode, it's not a huge time waste for Blizzard to sort of fix up. It doesn't have to be a game mode that you play an awful lot of, but it's just better than the same simple game mode that we've had for almost 3 years. One of the reasons why Blizzard do events is to bring people into the actual game, right? To either play the brawls or to check out the skins. They're the two main reasons, the game mode and to see what the skins are. However, if Blizzard are just bringing back the same old game mode that we all know, whilst also revealing all of their legendary skins on Twitter, then there is very little reason to actually log into Overwatch when you know what's in the event already. So this is one big problem that I hope Blizzard will sort of fix up, either by saying, hey, this is going to be the same event and adding new stuff in, or just changing up the event altogether. For example, this time next year, it'd be nice to have something different other than the Summer Games, especially if it's going to be the 4th year of Lucio Bowl, because I can't really take it much more. Next up is lore and story, and man, there is a great example that's happened this week of people bringing up lore and story that's causing a really big problem. Frankly, we haven't had any in a long while, and I feel like this has reached breaking point from the last post that we saw from Michael Chu. Michael Chu is the lead writer for Overwatch, designs a lot of the lore and story and where the game takes us in a story perspective. And the question was asked on the forum, and let's face it, we were all waiting for the answer for this. I wonder how Torbjorn sleeps with that mechanical arm at night. And Michael Chu responded with elation. He has different arm attachments, the claw one being the one he uses primarily whilst engineering and on the battlefield. And you can imagine Reddit, when this was posted to the top of r/Overwatch, their excitement seeing this answer finally brought up. And the question was no longer on our minds. We could sleep at night knowing that the story was going somewhere, and everybody was so no, it was a shit show. Obviously. Sorry, tell yes and I never tell, I just thought I'd throw that one in there. Good luck on the Battle for Azeroth launch. Mwah. But yeah, the Reddit forum was just full of questions like, where is the lore? This is the only bit of lore that we seem to have had this quarter. A lot of questions of people just wondering what Michael Chu does on a daily basis. And I think that's a little bit unfair on Michael Chu himself. He is the lead writer. There are more writers part of this team. And people are quick to look at his personal Twitter, but that is his personal Twitter, you know? He doesn't post about all of the work that he does. And let's face it, a lot of the work that he will do will be behind the scenes and kept under a tight lid. This is lore and story, and he doesn't want to reveal too much other than these tidbits of information that, let's be fair, people don't really care as much about. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, because people seem to miss the fact that a new writer has been hired by Blizzard. Not only that, she was award-winning Elisa Wong. She writes a lot of short fiction, she's won a couple awards in that area, and it's obviously a sign that Blizzard care about their lore and story. This does kind of break the rule of the video a little bit, as it is being addressed by hiring more writers, but I'd like Blizzard to be a bit more upfront about their plans with the lore and story, what they want to do, what their workflow and timeline is for the next year, when they're planning to release cinematics, and how they intend to expand the universe. I just hope it gets sorted. Like, it's a huge disservice to the fans that care about the characters that they play, and people are really invested in the characters and story of Overwatch. So for the fact that we've had very little is really just disappointing. especially when you compare that to World of Warcraft now, which I do know is more story dependent of an MMO. People are really starting to get into the story and get hyped around it. I'd like to see something similar for Overwatch. Next up is EARTHSHATTER. I did mention that I didn't want to bring up specific hero balance, but this is certainly one of the changes that's come through that really needs sorting sooner rather than later. Most of us know that EARTHSHATTER is one of the more buggy or problematic ultimates in the game. Blizzard have said in the past that they are addressing it and reworking the ult to make it less problematic. But a few weeks ago on the PTR, an animation rework found its way into the game, with zero word from Blizzard in patch notes about what this change was, whether it was a bug. They didn't remove it, it was sat on the PTR all that time. The ultimate worked in the same way and people didn't like how it looked. They said it looked worse and Blizzard just didn't bring it up at all. But what makes it even worse is that this change made it into the live servers with the recent balance patch update, and again Blizzard said nothing about it too. Ryan is even in the patch notes for other stuff, yet Blizzard don't address this change at all. Whether it's unintended, whether it is, what it's actually meant to be doing, is it a bug, is it the unfinished rework? Blizzard have said nothing about this, and I just think that this is completely unacceptable at this point. This is one of the more buggy and problematic ultimates in the game on one of the most played heroes. This shouldn't be happening in this game at this point, so I'd like Blizzard to just address what the hell is going on with this EARTHSHATTER and whether they intend to take it out or fix it. I briefly mentioned patching, so let's talk about that as the fourth installment of this video. Blizzard had a big problem with frequency of patching before. You know, fixing things like the Mercy meta back in January took a long time, and the Hanzo Brigitte changes took a long while to get fixed too. However, Blizzard have been more frequent with their balance patch updates, and it's great. Honestly, it's in a much better position. However, the problem now is more the timing of their patches and how it affects the pro scene. For example, Contenders now plays on a new Symmetra, new Sombra, Hitscan May buffs and Hammond patch for the quarterfinals. Up until then it was played on an older patch, and the teams had to adjust to this very big meta change, which very much is a thing. The lineups that have been played in Contenders are ridiculously different to what they were before, and these teams have only had 1 week to prep for the final, in a very different meta. Not only that, the buffs to Ana, Mercy, etc. are now on live, so not only have the teams had very little time to actually adjust to a new patch, but the patch that they're playing on is already outdated and an older patch again. It's a tricky thing for Blizzard to actually work out, I can totally understand that, but I'd like to see more of a concrete schedule on when these patches are going to come out that doesn't negatively impact the pro scene and makes it so I'm watching the most up-to-date patches being played. Otherwise you have issues like stage 4 of Overwatch League being played on the old Hanzo when the new Hanzo was on live, and it just bored everybody. Nobody wants to watch the pros essentially playing a very different game to us. And finally, speaking of Contenders, that's the final thing that I wanted to bring up here, and I think one of Blizzard's biggest problems right now. Considering that the Overwatch League is a multi-million-dollar league and a pretty big success at that, it sucks to see Contenders below the tier 3 scene being in the state that it's in. It doesn't get a lot of exposure from Blizzard, the prize pool money is fairly small for what it is, and essentially everything below that is just a complete mess. Aya Stokes, our friend that's a coach for XL2, did a great breakdown on Reddit with the problems in the tier 2 and 3 scene, which is on screen now just to sort of give you a brief glimpse. But stuff like low prize pools, slow payouts and no third party tournaments, mired with a whole plethora of shady shit, just means that the whole scene is really struggling below Overwatch League. I would again like Blizzard to address the scene, give it a bit more love now that Overwatch League is done for the year, and see our tier 2 teams have a bit more support, both financially from Blizzard with bigger prize pools and more tournaments outside of, you know, the Overwatch League and Contenders, and just other means to help the scene out a little bit more. They need to help their grassroots esports grow a little bit more. But they are all of the areas that I wanted to go over in this video. Some really big topics at Blizzard I really wish would just sort out and try and fix as time goes on. But let us know what you think of all of this in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, take care. We'll see you then.